She wasn't the kind of girl you'd ever suspect. Straight-A student, captain of the cheer team. But one night, the sound that woke her neighbors wasn't music from the stadium. It was a scream, hers. Maplewood, Ohio, the kind of town that looked painted in daylight. White fences, Friday night games, the scent of cut grass drifting through open windows. At the center of it all was Emma Reese, 17, the town's golden girl. Everyone knew her. Everyone liked her. She smiled at teachers, waved at old ladies, led the homecoming crowd with that signature energy that made even losing teams believe. But behind that practiced smile, Emma carried something no one saw coming. A secret she'd been burying for nearly a year. Her diary, tucked under a loose floorboard, told a story very different from the one she lived in public. And on October 17th, that story finally started to surface. Emma lived with her mother, Linda Reese, a nurse who worked double shifts to afford Emma's cheer uniforms and travel fees. Her father had left when she was 8. "Work overseas," he said. No one in Maplewood had seen him since. But it never showed. Emma made sure of that. She was the first to volunteer at school fundraisers, the one classmates called Sunshine. Yet that same sunshine had started to fade over the summer. She'd stopped eating lunch with her team. She'd deleted old photos from social media. And when one of her friends asked if everything was okay, Emma just said, "Some things look better when they disappear." That fall, a new name started showing up beside hers. Jake Holloway, 21, worked part-time at his uncle's auto shop on the edge of town. Older, quiet, dangerous in the way small-town boys sometimes are. All mystery, all secrets. He'd been seen picking Emma up after practice, his truck idling just long enough to draw whispers. "Her mom doesn't know," one cheerleader told another. "If she did, she'd lock Emma in her room." They weren't wrong. Because what Emma didn't know was that Jake was already being investigated for something that had happened a few towns over. A missing girl whose car was found near the same highway he drove every night. Friday, October 17th. The night of the homecoming pep rally. Emma was supposed to lead the halftime routine, red bow, silver pom-poms, smile ready for the cameras. But halfway through the first quarter, she was gone. At 8:42 p.m., her phone pinged a location behind the old industrial mill, 2 miles from the stadium. A text from her mother read, "Where are you? Everyone's asking." No reply. At 9:10 p.m., a factory worker leaving his shift heard something echo from the old lot, like a shout, followed by the slamming of a car door. By morning, Emma was the talk of the town for all the wrong reasons. Maplewood woke to flyers on every pole. Missing Emma Reese, 17. TV crews set up outside the high school. Students gathered in silence, some crying, some just staring at the empty cheer mat. Detective Mara Jenkins took the lead, a veteran officer with the calm eyes of someone who'd seen too many families fall apart. Her first stop was Emma's phone. Unlocked, but with one curious thing. Between Thursday night and early Friday morning, Emma had deleted over 30 messages, all from Jake. Using software recovery, tech officers pulled fragments. What they found changed the tone of the case. "I can't hide this forever. If anyone finds out, we're done. You promised, Jake. You promised." And one final unsent draft, timestamped just before her disappearance. "He's not who he says he is." In small towns, gossip moves faster than facts. By Sunday morning, theories spread like wildfire. Some said Emma had run away. Others whispered she was pregnant. And a few, the quiet, fearful few, believed she'd been silenced for knowing too much. At the Reese house, Linda sat at the kitchen table surrounded by untouched cups of coffee, everyone cold. Detective Jenkins asked her gently, "Did Emma ever mention being afraid of someone?" Linda shook her head. "No, not afraid, just tired. Like she was pretending all the time." Jenkins noticed something then, a photo on the fridge, Emma and Jake at the county fair. Pinned beneath it was a folded note. Inside, written in Emma's looping handwriting, "If anything happens to me, don't believe what they say." The official search began Monday morning. Over 200 volunteers combing through fields, ditches, and riverbanks. By dusk, nothing. Then, around 6:17 p.m., a K-9 unit picked up a scent near the old mill. The same place Emma's phone had pinged. Behind a stack of rusted oil drums, they found a shoe white, size 6.5, stained and torn. And beside it, a small plastic charm shaped like a cheer bow. DNA would later confirm it belonged to Emma Reese. But that night, what struck Detective Jenkins most wasn't the shoe. It was the faint outline of tire tracks, fresh and wide, leading straight toward the woods. When they ran the pattern, it matched a 2003 Ford F-150. Jake Holloway's truck. Police found him at the auto shop, working under a car, grease on his hands, eyes wide when he saw the cruisers. "Jake Holloway," Jenkins said, "we need to ask you a few questions." He didn't resist. He didn't even ask why. In the interview room, he sat silent, chewing the inside of his cheek. When they showed him the shoe, his face changed. Not guilt, not fear, but something colder. "I didn't hurt her," he said. "You think you know Emma, but you don't." "What does that mean?" Jenkins pressed. He stared at the recorder on the table, then whispered, "She's not missing. She just finally did what she said she would." "Which is?" Jake leaned back. "Make it all go away." As detectives combed through Emma's laptop, they uncovered a hidden folder labeled Sunset. Inside were dozens of voice recordings, diary-style audio logs spanning months. The first few were harmless. Cheer practice, homework, nerves before competitions. But then, the tone shifted. June 3rd. "Jake says we can't tell anyone. He's scared of what his family will do. But I think it's more than that." July 9th. "Sometimes I think about the other girl, the one from Mason County. What if she knew too much too?" August 15th. "He said if I disappear, people will just think I ran away. Maybe that's the only way to be free." The final recording, timestamped the night she vanished, lasted only 9 seconds. A shaky breath. A whisper, "It's happening." Then a car door. Silence. By Wednesday, Maplewood's charm had turned to paranoia. Parents locked their doors. The high school canceled classes. Local news parked vans outside the Reese home like vultures. Every headline called Emma, the missing cheerleader. But to those who'd known her best, the real question wasn't where she was. It was who she'd become before she vanished. Because as detectives traced her final movements, they found evidence that didn't fit the narrative of a victim. Security footage from a gas station, 15 miles north, showed a figure matching Emma's build. Alone, wearing a hoodie, at 10:37 p.m. Friday. She bought gas, bottled water, and a prepaid phone. She wasn't being chased. She was running from something, or someone. Detective Jenkins watched the footage over and over. Same posture, same shoes. But when the figure turned toward the camera, the timestamp glitched and the face blurred. "Could it be her?" a deputy asked. Jenkins didn't answer. She was staring at something else, the car the girl drove away in. Not Jake's truck. Not Emma's mother's sedan. A silver sedan registered to a name Jenkins didn't recognize. A name that, when she ran it through the system, came back as Linda Reese, alias Lydia Rayner. Emma's mother. As the truth twisted tighter around Maplewood, one question refused to fade. How far would a mother go to hide her past? If you think you've guessed what really happened to Emma, don't scroll yet. The next parphase changes everything. The next 48 hours would turn a missing person search into something far darker. A web of lies stretching years before Emma was even born. What was Linda Reese hiding? And why did Emma's secret lead straight back home? The sun hadn't yet risen over Maplewood when Detective Mara Jenkins returned to the Reese house. Inside, Linda sat at the kitchen table, the same spot she'd been in for 3 days, eyes red-rimmed, untouched coffee cooling beside her. Jenkins placed a manila folder on the table. "Linda," she said quietly, "I ran your name." Linda didn't look up. "You ran it, didn't you?" she whispered. "Then you already know." On paper, she was Lydia Rayner, former resident of Pine Hollow, Pennsylvania, a town that once made national headlines for a fire that destroyed half its downtown. 3 people died. One of them was a man named Michael Rayner, her husband. Linda exhaled slowly. I was trying to protect her, she said. Emma didn't know who her father really was. Jenkins kept her voice steady. Then tell me, who was he? Linda's eyes met hers. A man capable of anything. Outside, reporters shouted questions through the picket fence. Cameras flashed. The story was spreading. The missing cheerleader's mother hiding a secret past. But none of them knew the next twist. Later that morning, police towed a silver sedan from behind a storage unit 30 miles north. Inside, a half-empty bottle of water, 2 burner phones, and Emma's cheer bow tucked into the glove compartment. Forensics dusted the interior. 2 sets of prints, Emma's and Linda's. Jenkins stared at the report. She wasn't running from Jake, she murmured. She was running with someone she trusted. She needed to find out why. The first burner phone held a single video, saved but never uploaded. The timestamp placed it 10 hours before Emma vanished. Emma sat in her bedroom, hair pulled back, eyes tired but determined. Her voice trembled. If anyone finds this, I need you to know. Mom isn't who she says she is. And Jake, he knows the truth. He said if I don't help him, he'll tell everyone what happened in Pine Hollow. She paused, looking off camera. He said she started the fire. The clip ended with the sound of a car outside, and Emma whispering, he's here. Jenkins drove straight to Jake Holloway's uncle's auto shop. The garage was empty. The truck was gone. Only a smear of fresh oil on the concrete hinted he'd left fast. A county-wide alert went out. By sunset, a deputy spotted Jake's F-150 on Route 19 heading north, toward Pine Hollow. Night fell fast. Rain turned the roads slick and silver. Jenkins followed the route in an unmarked sedan, siren silent, headlights off until she reached the old highway bridge. That's where she saw it. Jake's truck pulled over, hazard lights blinking, door open. No sign of him, but down the embankment her flashlight caught movement. A figure climbing through the brush, soaked, shivering. It was Emma. Jenkins rushed down, heart pounding. Emma! Stop! It's okay! Emma froze, eyes wide like a cornered animal. You don't understand, she said. He's not chasing me, he's following her. Who? Emma looked past her, toward the road above. My mom. Back at the station, blankets wrapped around her shoulders, Emma finally spoke. She told me not to tell anyone. She said people died because of her. The fire wasn't an accident. She lit it to cover up what Dad did. Jenkins leaned forward. What did he do? Emma hesitated. He hurt someone. A girl. Mom said it would ruin all of us. The detective's chest tightened. The pattern matched an unsolved case from Pine Hollow. A teenage babysitter found dead the same night as the fire. So the fire was a distraction, Jenkins said quietly. Emma nodded. She said if anyone found out, we'd lose everything. Just after midnight, a state trooper radioed in. A woman matching Linda Reese's description had been seen buying gas off Route 19. She paid cash, left in a hurry, heading toward Pine Hollow. Jenkins grabbed her keys. Stay with her, she told the deputy, nodding to Emma. Don't let her out of your sight. Emma's voice stopped her at the door. Detective. She still thinks she can fix it. 2 hours later, Jenkins reached the outskirts of Pine Hollow. The town was half rebuilt, half abandoned. Ghostly storefronts, cracked windows, the smell of smoke that never seemed to fade. A single light flickered inside the ruins of what used to be Rayner Hardware, the building where the fire began. Jenkins stepped inside, gun drawn. Linda! Her voice echoed through the hollowed-out shell. Then, from the dark, you shouldn't have brought her into this. Linda emerged from the shadows, flashlight trembling in her hand. She's my daughter, Jenkins said softly. You can still tell her the truth. Linda shook her head. The truth destroyed everything once. It will again. Behind her, another voice cut through the rain. Step away from her, Lydia. Jake Holloway stood in the doorway, soaked, wild-eyed, holding a small flash drive. She promised me this was over, he said. She promised me no one would know what we did. What's on that drive? Jenkins demanded. Jake's laugh cracked. The fire wasn't the first time. Your sweet cheerleader helped us make sure there wouldn't be another. Linda's face crumpled. Don't you dare, she whispered. Jake lifted the drive. She recorded everything. Jenkins lunged as he turned to run. The struggle lasted seconds. A scuffle, a shout, the sound of something small skittering across the floor. When the flash drive came to rest under Jenkins's boot, she saw the label scrawled in ink, Sunset 2. She looked up. Jake was gone. Linda stood shaking, eyes full of tears. Please, she said, don't let her hear it. By dawn, Jenkins sat alone in her car outside the station, thumb drive plugged into her laptop. The first file loaded. Emma's voice again. This is the last one, she said softly. Mom said sometimes you have to burn the truth to keep it from spreading. But lies don't burn, do they? They just wait. Then another voice. Deeper, rougher. Jake's. Do it, Em. It's the only way they'll stop asking. A roar, fire, crackling, a scream. The clip ended abruptly. Jenkins closed the laptop. She could already see the headline. The cheerleader and the fire that never died. She rubbed her temples, the weight of it pressing hard. Somewhere between victim and accomplice, Emma Reese had blurred the line, and her mother's past had drawn the circle closed. Emma sat in the interview room hours later, staring at the blank wall. They'll say I helped him, she murmured. They'll say I'm like her. Jenkins watched her closely. Are they wrong? Emma looked up, eyes hollow. Sometimes the people who save you just teach you how to hide better. The detective's phone buzzed. A text from forensics. Video file recovered. Not complete. There was more. That night, Jenkins replayed the final seconds of the damaged video. Static. Fire. Then, just before the feed cut, a faint reflection in the glass. Not Emma, not Jake. Linda. Holding the camera. So much for the perfect family, Jenkins thought. Outside, reporters were already calling this the most disturbing twist yet. But she knew it wasn't over. Not until she understood why a mother would let her daughter take the blame for a crime that began long before she was born. Because somewhere in that burned-out town, one last secret was still waiting. And this time, it wouldn't stay buried. If you've followed the story this far, think about this. Would you protect someone you love, even if it meant rewriting the past? Tell me your theory below. And stay tuned for the next phase where the confession changes everything. It was 3 a.m. when Detective Jenkins finally pressed play. The restored video flickered to life, washed in static, like a memory refusing to fade. Emma's voice came first, softer than before, almost resigned. I told you it wasn't supposed to go that far, she said. He said we were just going to scare him. Then another voice answered, muffled, male. Your mom wanted it done. Jenkins froze the frame. A reflection glimmered in the window behind Emma, the faint outline of Linda Reese holding the phone. She whispered, Oh my God! By sunrise, Emma sat in the interrogation room again, a single cup of untouched water in front of her. Jenkins laid the printed frame on the table. Tell me what we're looking at. Emma stared at the photo for a long time. That was the night before the fire, she said finally. Jake, found out Mom used to know one of the victims. He said she owed him. Said if she didn't help, he'd tell the police what really happened back then. Jenkins leaned forward. And she agreed? Emma nodded. She always said the truth burns. I didn't understand what she meant until that night. The official statement would later read, Emma Reese assisted Jake Holloway in the destruction of evidence linked to a historic homicide in Pine Hollow. But the public didn't see a criminal. They saw a terrified girl manipulated by adults, and a mother running from ghosts of her own making. When the confession hit social media, the story exploded. Podcasts, news outlets, influencers, everyone had an opinion. Half the country called Emma a victim. The other half wanted her charged. Through it all, Linda Reese remained silent. Until one gray Thursday afternoon, Jenkins got a call from a hospital in Scranton. A woman claiming to be Lydia Rayner had checked herself in critical condition, smoke inhalation from an abandoned building fire. When Jenkins arrived, Linda was awake but weak, her voice rasping through the oxygen mask. "I didn't light that fire," she whispered. "Not the first one. Not the last. I just took the blame." "Why?" Jenkins asked. Linda's eyes glistened. "Because he was her father." Jenkins froze. "You said he died that night." "He should have," Linda said. "But some things survive the fire. He walked away, changed his name, built a new life." She reached for Jenkins's hand. "Promise me you'll protect her when she finds out." Then the monitor flatlined. That night, Jenkins drove back to Maplewood. Rain washed over the windshield, and in her mind, she replayed Linda's words. If the man who started everything was still alive, who was he now? The case files listed dozens of men involved in the Old Pine Hollow investigation, but one name caught her attention: Detective Paul Holloway, Jake's father, the man who handled the original fire report. Jenkins visited the retired detective's cabin the next morning. The door creaked open. Inside, dust floated like ghosts. On the wall hung framed newspaper clippings. "Local hero saves boy from burning hardware store." She found the medals, the certificates, and a single photo: Linda Rayner and Paul Holloway, smiling beside a baby girl. Emma. When Jenkins returned to the station, she called Emma in. The girl's face had hardened over the last few days, youth slipping away under the weight of everything. "Emma," Jenkins said gently, "there's something you need to see." She slid the photo across the table. Emma blinked. "That's my mom? And Jake's dad?" Jenkins nodded. "He was your father, Emma. The fire wasn't to cover up his crime. It was to bury who he was." Emma's breath caught. "So Jake, he's your half-brother," Jenkins finished. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma stood, pacing. "He knew. That's why he said we were the same. He wanted me to burn it all, just like she did." Her voice cracked. "Everything we did was to hide him." Jenkins stepped forward, careful. "You can still make this right, Emma. You can end what they started." Emma met her gaze. "You don't end fire. You let it burn out." That evening, Jenkins received another video, anonymous email, no subject line. The thumbnail showed flickering flames. When she hit play, a voice spoke through the smoke. "This time, everyone will know the truth." The camera tilted, catching the Maplewood sign blazing in the night. Someone had set another fire. Sirens wailed across town as firefighters fought to save what little was left. Inside the chaos, Jenkins spotted a figure standing across the street, silhouetted by the flames. A young woman, motionless, watching it all burn. "Emma!" she shouted, running through the smoke. But when she reached the spot, the girl was gone. Only a phone lay in the gutter, screen still recording. Jenkins picked it up. On the screen, a message glowed. "You can't hide the truth forever. Part of me will always stay here." The camera turned briefly, catching her reflection in the glass. Tears, soot, exhaustion. Jenkins whispered, "You don't have to do this." But the video ended. By dawn, Emma Reese was officially listed as missing. Again, the town of Maplewood mourned the story they thought was over. But for Jenkins, it had only transformed. From a case to a confession, from a fire to an echo. Because sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. It just lights the match. If this part left you with chills, don't stop here. The next chapter reveals what Emma really planned before vanishing. Drop your theory in the comments, and let's see who pieces it together first. The town woke up to chaos. News anchors spoke her name again. Headlines flashing across screens like wildfire. Emma Reese missing again. Detective Mara Jenkins hadn't slept in 36 hours. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that last video. Flames, Emma's reflection, and that chilling line, "Part of me will always stay here." Reporters crowded outside the Maplewood Police Department. Inside, Jenkins paced, a coffee gone cold in her hand, the phone Emma left behind sitting on her desk in an evidence bag. The tech team had spent all night recovering fragments from it. Corrupted clips, voice notes, unfinished drafts. But one folder stood out. It was locked behind a passcode. The name of the folder? Mother. Jenkins stared at the screen. Try her mother's birthday, she said. The tech tapped, paused. It opened. Inside were 6 video files, each labeled by date, the last one just hours before the fire. The first clip began with Emma whispering in the dark. I know what they'll say, that I ran again. But this time I'm not running. I'm finishing it. Then she held up an old photo. Linda Rayner and Detective Paul Holloway, smiling with a baby. My whole life was built on a lie, she said. And lies burn hotter than fire. The second video showed Emma driving at night. Wind whipped her hair as she spoke into the camera. They made me keep secrets, but they forgot I learned from the best. She turned the camera briefly toward the passenger seat. Empty. Jake thinks I'm going to meet him, she said. But he doesn't know what I found. The third file cut to her pulling into a gas station, buying a red jerrycan. Her eyes looked hollow. If you grew up in fire, you stop being afraid of getting burned. Jenkins exhaled. She planned this, she murmured. Every step. But the last 2 files refused to open, encrypted with a secondary lock. She forwarded them to the cyber unit, but deep down, she knew Emma wanted this trail found. Every video, every clue, it was choreography. By afternoon, #WhereIsEmma began trending. The internet. She faked her own disappearance. The detective is hiding her. Emma's father is still alive. Influencers dissected her voice, frame by frame. Some called her a victim seeking peace. Others said she was the new kind of criminal, one who understood how to vanish in plain sight. Even Jenkins's inbox filled with threats, theories, and prayers. But she kept watching those clips, looking for one thing the public missed, the pattern beneath the chaos. Late that night, she noticed it. Every clip ended with a faint reflection. Not of Emma, but of a streetlight shaped like a cross. She pulled up the town map. There was only one intersection with that exact lamp design, near the abandoned Pine Hollow Church. Within minutes, she was on the road. The church stood at the edge of the old district, wrapped in fog. Its windows were shattered, its doors chained. Yet someone had recently forced the lock. Jenkins stepped inside, flashlight sweeping through dust and silence. Then her beam hit something new, a laptop resting on the altar. It was still warm. The screen glowed with a single open document. Title, To Detective Jenkins. Her heart pounded as she began to read. If you're here, it means you figured out the streetlight. I knew you would. The truth you're chasing isn't about who lit the fires. It's about who watched them. Some people don't kill with weapons. They kill with silence. She scrolled further. I'm tired of running from a story someone else wrote. So I wrote my own. Don't look for me, detective. Look at the people who built heroes from monsters. At the bottom, one line pulsed in bold text. Check your email. Jenkins's phone buzzed immediately. A new message. No sender ID. Subject. Last confession. She opened it. A video attached, time-stamped that same night. In the frame, Emma sat inside the church, candlelight flickering around her. Everyone keeps saying I'm lost, she said softly. But what if this is the only way to be found? Tears streamed down her face. Jake wanted to burn away guilt. Mom wanted to bury it. But maybe truth isn't about choosing fire or silence. Maybe it's about leaving something behind. She looked straight into the camera. If this goes out, promise you'll tell them I wasn't the villain. I was the ending. The screen went black. By morning, every news outlet had the video. The story broke the internet. Some called it a confession. Others called it art. Emma Reese had vanished into her own legend. No trace, no body, just that haunting message left for one detective who couldn't stop chasing her. A week later, Jenkins returned to Pine Hollow one last time. The fires were out, the air heavy with rain. As she walked past the ruins, she noticed something etched into a scorched brick near the church door. 3 words, written in ash. Lies don't die. She stood there for a long time, rain dripping from her coat, wondering if Emma had ever truly left at all. Because some disappearances aren't escapes. They're transformations. If this part gave you chills, you're going to need a moment before the finale. The truth about Emma's final act, and what Detective Jenkins discovers next, will turn everything upside down. Like, subscribe, and share your theory below, and brace yourself for the truth she left behind. 3 weeks had passed since Emma Reese disappeared. The fires were long out, but Maplewood still smelled like smoke, the kind that clings to a town's soul. Detective Mara Jenkins sat alone in her office, replaying the last video again and again. Every frame, every flicker of light, every word Emma had said. Maybe truth isn't about choosing fire or silence. Maybe it's about leaving something behind. The case was technically closed, but Jenkins couldn't stop thinking about what Emma meant by leaving something behind. The morning mail brought a small, unmarked package. No return address, just her name scrawled across the top. Inside was a plain USB drive wrapped in a folded piece of notebook paper. One line written in neat handwriting. For the ones who still believe in truth. Jenkins plugged it in. A folder appeared, Maplewood. Inside were dozens of files. Video clips, scanned letters, police reports, and voice recordings. Every one of them tied together everything Emma had ever hinted at. The first video opened with Emma in a dimly lit basement. "This isn't about my mom," she said. "It's about everyone who let her carry the blame." She lifted a box filled with cassette tapes. "These were my father's, Detective Holloway's. He recorded everything. Every case, every lie." She played one. A younger Paul Holloway's voice came through, steady and cold. "We'll mark it as accidental. No sense destroying a family over one mistake. If Rayner takes the fall, the department stays clean." Jenkins leaned forward, heart pounding. They hadn't covered up a crime to protect Linda. They'd covered it up to protect themselves. The next recording cut to Linda's voice, trembling, desperate. "You said you'd make it disappear. You said it was an accident." "It was," Holloway replied. "And it stays that way, or Emma grows up without a mother." A click. Silence. Then Emma's voice, years later, whispering to the camera. "I grew up thinking she started that fire. But the truth? She was saving me from them." Jenkins sifted through the files, piecing together the puzzle Emma had spent her life trying to complete. Every officer involved in the Pine Hollow fire investigation had ties to Holloway, promotions, favors, sealed reports. It was a web of corruption buried for 2 decades, and Linda Rayner had been the perfect scapegoat. Emma had uncovered it, and realized no one would believe her. Not after everything. So she didn't run from the truth. She weaponized it. The final folder contained a single video titled, "The Last Match." Jenkins hesitated, then pressed play. Emma sat in front of the church altar again, candlelight flickering against her face. "I know what they'll say when this goes out," she began softly. "That I disappeared because I was guilty. That I burned everything because I couldn't live with it." She smiled faintly, sad, tired, knowing. "But I didn't disappear to escape. I disappeared to make them listen." She lifted a lighter, flame dancing in her eyes. "Every story they told about me was a lie, so I gave them a story they couldn't ignore." The camera panned slightly, showing boxes of evidence labeled Holloway. She looked straight at the lens. "This isn't the end of my story. It's the beginning of theirs." She blew out the flame. Static. End of file. Jenkins sat back in silence, the weight of it crushing. Emma hadn't just vanished. She'd orchestrated a reckoning. By leaking those files, she'd exposed a generation of cover-ups, forcing Maplewood and Pine Hollow to finally face what they buried. Within days, headlines erupted again. Emma Reese's evidence sparks statewide investigation. Former detective implicated in 20-year cover-up. But there was still one mystery left. Where was Emma? A month later, Jenkins drove to the coast. She wasn't following a lead, just a feeling. The case had ended, but her mind hadn't. She parked near an overlook where the cliffs met the sea, wind howling against the rocks. Something caught her eye. A small bouquet of burned daisies tied to the railing with red ribbon. A note fluttered beneath it. "You said truth burns. I learned it also heals. Jenkins smiled faintly. Maybe Emma hadn't died in the fire. Maybe she'd finally stepped out of it. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Jenkins looked back toward the town. Small, quiet, pretending to be normal again. But some stories never fade. They smolder, waiting for someone brave enough to tell them. And in the end, that's what Emma Reese left behind. Not ashes, not guilt, but truth. The kind that lights the dark, even when no one's looking. If you've stayed through this final chapter, thank you. Some fires start with lies, but it's truth that keeps the story alive. If you want more haunting true crime stories like this one, subscribe and let me know which case should burn next.